Let's say the world ends, not with a whimper, but with a blood-curdling groan and the stench of rotting flesh. But instead of dropping us into modern times, imagine the zombie apocalypse hits over 1,000 years ago during the age of the Vikings. No guns, no electricity, just longships, axes, and some very questionable hygiene. The undead are rising, and the only thing standing between them and total domination is a bunch of Nordic warriors who already thought the end of the world was coming. They just expected it to be caused by a giant wolf and a flaming sword, not a reanimated peasant trying to bite their face off. Would the Vikings survive a zombie apocalypse? Let's pillage that question. We start with some basics. Vikings weren't just pirates in horned helmets, which, by the way, were never real. They were a mix of Scandinavian farmers, raiders, traders, and occasional poetry enjoyers, active roughly between 793 and 1066 AD. They raided coasts, sailed across oceans, and set up shop from North America to the Middle East. If there was something worth looting, they were probably already halfway there. So what makes these guys contenders in a zombie-infested wasteland? First, brute strength. These weren't people who skipped leg day. Vikings rode longships for days on end, not just for fun, but to go raid someone else's breakfast. Rowing a 75-foot-long dragon boat across rough seas takes serious endurance and muscle coordination. They were also constantly chopping trees, moving stones, and building structures. It was a world where your biceps were your currency, and being jacked wasn't a gym goal, it was survival. In a zombie apocalypse where running, climbing, and smashing are daily activities, Vikings would be physically overqualified. Second, weapons and craftsmanship. Vikings didn't rely on store-bought tools. They made their own weapons, often from iron they smelted themselves. Their arsenal included axes, both throwing and two-handed, spears, short swords, sexes, a kind of long knife, and bows. Most famously, the bearded axe, lightweight, versatile, and great for splitting skulls or wood. And unlike bullets, a good axe doesn't run out. Even more importantly, they knew how to forge and maintain these tools. They had entire communities of smiths and craftsmen capable of producing reliable, high-quality gear without a factory or supply chain. In an apocalypse, that's priceless. Third, tactical warfare and defensive planning. The Vikings weren't mindless berserkers. They were cunning tacticians. They used hit-and-run attacks, staged ambushes, and knew how to exploit terrain. The famed shield wall wasn't just cool in movies, it was an effective formation for fending off attackers. Picture a tightly packed group with overlapping shields and spears poking through, a mobile wall of doom. Against zombies, this formation could keep an undead horde at bay long enough to thin their numbers. They also built longhouses, forts, and temporary encampments with strong wooden palisades, great for keeping out things that don't understand ladders. Fourth, transportation and mobility. The Viking longship was a marvel of design. It was fast, could navigate both deep and shallow waters, and was light enough to be hauled over land if needed. Imagine zombies flooding a region. While modern survivors are stuck in traffic or trying to steal gas, Vikings would just shove off and sail to a less undead-infested area. Rivers, coastlines, and even icy fjords became travel routes or escape corridors. They were one of the most mobile pre-modern civilizations. Fifth, self-sufficiency and survival skills. Vikings didn't rely on imports or electricity. They grew their own crops, raised livestock, fished, and hunted. They knew how to dry, salt, ferment, and smoke food to make it last through long winters. For example, they buried fish in pits with salt or even fermented shark meat in some regions. Not delicious, but definitely shelf-stable. They brewed mead and ale that acted as mild antiseptics. Their settlements had smokehouses, root cellars, and grain stores. When everyone else is scavenging 7-Elevens for moldy cans, Vikings are sitting on a stockpile of pickled herring and hearty rye. And most importantly, community structure and cohesion. Viking society was tightly knit. The family clan wasn't just blood, it was your unit of survival. These communities shared resources, defended each other, and functioned cooperatively. Leadership was decentralized, but mutual respect and custom ruled decisions. Disputes were settled at a thing, their version of a public assembly. If you caused problems, you could be outlawed, which in Viking terms meant you were on your own and probably dead soon. In a zombie apocalypse, this strong sense of group loyalty and social structure would be crucial. But let's not throw them a victory horn just yet. The Vikings had their vulnerabilities. First, medicine and infection. Vikings had some herbal knowledge. They could make poultices, use honey as an antiseptic, and treat broken bones or wounds. But viral transmission, zombie pathogens, they weren't exactly doing controlled clinical trials. One infected bite in a small camp could lead to a rapid outbreak. No quarantine protocols, no hazmat suits, just one berserker foaming at the mouth, and suddenly your meat hall turns into a horror movie. Second, close combat risk. Their melee skills were unmatched, but that's a double-edged sword. Fighting up close means getting close to the infected. No matter how good your axe swing is, if a zombie grabs your arm mid-fight, you're toast. And while they had archers, Viking bows weren't optimized for rapid-fire defense against hordes. They didn't build massive towers or sniper nests. They were warriors, not sentries. Third, religion and apocalyptic beliefs. Vikings believed in Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world. On one hand, that could motivate them to fight harder, seeing it as a glorious final battle. On the other, it might also make them fatalistic. Why fight the undead if it's all destined to end anyway? Half your crew might charge in yelling, "Valhalla!" while the other half lies down and waits for fate. Fourth, agriculture and siege vulnerability. While they were excellent food preservers, farming is a long game. Crops take months and livestock need care. A zombie siege around a Viking settlement would cut off access to hunting and farming grounds. And while they were good at raiding, constant relocation means you can't rely on stable harvests. Stationary agriculture plus mobile threat equals eventual starvation. Let's weigh the pros and cons. Pros: physically elite and conditioned for endurance. Master weapon makers and melee fighters. Highly mobile via longships. Deep survival knowledge and food preservation. Strong communal bonds and decentralized leadership. Cons: poor understanding of modern disease transmission. High-risk close-quarter combat. Potential fatalism due to religious beliefs. Vulnerability to sieges and disrupted farming. Verdict? The Vikings wouldn't just survive. They'd probably adapt and dominate. Their strength, mobility, resourcefulness, and loyalty make them one of history's best candidates for surviving the zombie apocalypse. Sure, they'd lose some warriors to infection or bad prophecy interpretations, but overall, if you see a Viking camp on the horizon, you're probably better off joining than running. So next time you hear groaning outside your window, don't just panic. Channel your inner Norseman. Sharpen your axe, pack some smoked salmon, and remember, Ragnarok may come, but at least you'll go down swinging with a beard and a battle cry.